Washington, London, and Brussels' calls to abandon Russian energy resources have triggered a frenzy in the markets, resulting in unprecedented increases in fuel prices and incisive statements from the leaders of the main EU nations. What arguments are in play, and will it be possible for each party to defend its position in this controversy? Last weekend, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, urged the European Union to completely sever ties with oil, coal, and gas from Russia. For this, it is necessary to diversify sources of supply, achieve better results in energy efficiency, and invest on a large scale in renewable energy sources, he explained. However, on Monday, French President Emmanuel Macron warned in his first pre-election rally that Europe will face serious problems if Russia stops supplying gas. Macron mentioned that although France is not as dependent on Russian gas, a disruption in supply by Russia could pose significant challenges for Europe next winter. He explained that countries like Germany and Italy are much more reliant on Russia in terms of gas. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also highlighted that energy supplies from Russia were exempt from sanctions, as there are currently no other viable alternatives to ensure Europe's energy security in heating, transportation, energy, and industry sectors. The federal government, in collaboration with EU partners and partners from other regions, is working on developing alternatives to Russian energy. The German leader emphasized that this transition does not happen immediately. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte agreed, cautioning that it is wise to avoid actions against Russia's energy supply at this time, in order to prevent uncontrollable risks. It is crucial to avoid mistakes at this point. According to Interfax, it is essential for our companies to maintain the partnership with Russian energy. The Prime Minister of Bulgaria highlighted the possibility of requesting exemptions in case of future sanctions from the European Union regarding the import of oil and gas from Russia. He emphasized that currently, they do not see viable alternatives. We are very dependent. Hungarian Finance Minister Varga Vahe stated that Budapest does not support the inclusion of the energy sector in EU sanctions against Russia, highlighting that such a measure would pose a serious threat to the country's national currency. In turn, President of the German Industrial Union, Siegfried Russwurm, warned that the embargo on Russian energy resource exports represents a danger for both Germany and the European Union. The member of the European Parliament, Thierry Mariani, also agrees with this view. He says that if the European Union decides to intensify sanctions and halt the import of gas and oil from Russia, it will have disastrous consequences. On the same day, the price of gas in Europe exceeded the $3,900 mark. Amid this situation, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak pointed out that the price increase is a result of failures in the European energy policy adopted in recent years. The politician emphasized that Russia is responsible for 40% of gas supplies to Europe, ensuring timely compliance with contracts by Gazprom. He also pointed out that gas shipments through Ukraine have increased to 109 million cubic meters per day. Novak added that, in the face of unfounded accusations against Russia regarding the energy crisis in Europe and the suspension of Nord Stream 2, Moscow is entitled to consider corresponding measures, such as an embargo on gas transit through Nord Stream 1. Editing of the subtitles was done by Asemkin and reviewed by Agurova. Gazprom has set new gas price records in Europe. The deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, preemptively congratulated European officials on the €3,500 gas price. The next day, there was a sharp conflict between the positions of the US, UK, and the Baltic states regarding the supply of energy resources and the view of most EU countries. The head of the Lithuanian Ministry of Energy, Giedrius Landsbergis, stated that Western sanctions against Russia could start with oil, which led Biden to reject that possibility yesterday. According to Landsbergis, Lithuania is open to discussing any proposal related to anti-Russian sanctions, with no red lines established in that regard for the country. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, surprised by stating in a joint press conference with Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas that European countries need to reduce their dependence on Russian energy resources, as Russia uses them as a weapon. Meanwhile, in the United States, gasoline prices reached a record high of $4.17 per gallon after reports that Washington plans to approve a ban on the import of Russian oil. This dilemma continues to be one of the main points of discussion in terms of domestic politics at the White House. With his recent statement, Biden completely rejected the use of Russian energy resources in the United States, while the British company BP pledged not to enter into new agreements for the acquisition of oil and gas from the country. The company stated that the only exception would be in case of a threat to the security of energy supply to consumers. Shell also disclosed its plans to divest from Russian oil and gas, starting with the end of all spot purchases of Russian oil. Despite the illusion of unity and a solid coalition in Western relations with Russia, it is evident that the coalition is fragile when it comes to energy. There is a wide opening within it, not limited to holes or cracks, as it involves various countries, companies, types of business, and political groups. These actors may adopt different stances regarding trade with Russia. The possibility of an energy embargo against Russia has sparked fears in futures markets, driving the price of gas to almost $4,000 per 1,000 cubic meters, while in the spot market it surpassed 2,000. This is an unattainable reality for the Western industry. In Russia, the price of gas is around $40 per 1,000 cubic meters, which is 100 times cheaper than in Europe. Statements by European leaders, such as Scholz, about the possibility of lifting sanctions, have dampened the enthusiasm of speculators. Currently, prices are not as high as they could be. European leaders show fear of taking risks, which reflects on the EU situation. The possibility of a negative impact on the industry, which could favor China, is worrying. In addition, the divergence in the Western coalition is evident, as is the case with the British request to reduce dependence on Russian gas, opting for LNG and petroleum products from Russia. Denmark stated that it will neither celebrate new contracts nor cancel the old ones, since these remain valid until 2030. The coalition against Russia, I reiterate, is in force. The EU has imposed severe sanctions on us due to understandings on many issues. However, when it comes to energy, we observe a dissension in the system that becomes complicated to classify as monolithic. The European Union is currently facing resistance from some member states regarding Brussels' policy. Possible restrictive sanctions imposed by European countries on Russian gas imports could trigger a reaction from Moscow, which could completely halt the supply of natural gas and coal. This situation would result in an energy market shutdown, putting Europe on the brink of an energy collapse. In this scenario, European countries intend to establish restrictions on electricity consumption, reducing by about half the supply of electricity and heat to the population. Proposals in this regard have already been discussed. However, no European country will agree to such a measure, as all recognize that sanctions will not resolve the Ukrainian issue. No one should trigger this sanctions machinery, as any mention of restrictions on the energy resources market results in an immediate increase in global prices. Recently, prices have risen sharply amid the potential for a US ban on importing Russian oil and derivatives. In the United States, fuel prices at gas stations are directly related to the value of oil in global markets. Voters do not seem to be satisfied with the current situation and are unlikely to thank Biden, especially after his statement yesterday. However, it seems that Washington intends to address the issue by only banning the import of oil from Russia, without affecting derivative products. For Russia, It is crucial to generate financial revenue through the trade of hydrocarbons. So, sanctions in the energy sector are not beneficial for anyone, as they will not solve the issue of Ukraine. This situation will likely encourage the resumption and growth of nuclear energy in Europe, with the reactivation of currently inactive plants. There is also expected to be a greater commitment in the West to promote wind energy, despite recent setbacks. Russia needs to master the technology of building large LNG plants in order to shift its focus to Asian markets. Thank you all for watching, and please share your opinions in the comments on the topic.